Start when you're ready. Good morning. Welcome to ARG St. Louis. We are live. TPO Pro alongside Jeffrey Michael Percher, bringing you live coverage from this morning's Top Cut. Sweet 16. And we have a matchup of Cameron Neal versus Carlos Mendrano. Both players making their way into the Top Cut. We have a matchup of Performapal versus Monarch. We expect both of these players to bring their A games this morning as they attempt to do what everyone else is hoping to do this weekend, win the ARG St. Louis crown. So looking just to articulate you to the screen, in the stream we do have on the left-hand side Carlos Mendrano, and we are updating their information as we speak. Thank you again for joining us. We are locked and ready to go. Really excited for the coverage this morning. As always, the sun is out, but the stars are still shining here in St. Louis as we have Patrick Hoban still in the running, as well as Jacob Finney, your reigning champion from ARG Charlotte. And Jeff, welcome. It's good to have you aboard. What are you expecting from this matchup, Performapal versus Monarchs? Who has the advantage?
Well, I mean, the great thing about Monarchs is it doesn't really care what the matchup is. I see that Carlos is running the Zoltan version. I actually played Cameron Neal at the end the other day. This deck was pretty intense.
And we're having a little bit of difficulty with Jeffrey, but while he's getting set here, again, we're just updating the deck list for you. We've got Pendulum, Magical Abductor hits the board, as well as an Upstart Goblin. That's going to go ahead and gain Carlos 9,000 life points as his total.
How do you get this mic to work?
And again, we're just looking again here as we've got two to the back row, one set. Looks like that's hot. And bear with us in the volume department here. Yeah, we're working on just a technical setup here, but in the meantime, welcome if you're just joining us. This is day 2, ARG St. Louis, TPO Pro alongside Jeffrey Michael Percher.
Hello.
We are updating the clock, updating everything else, and again, appreciate the insight from all of you at home watching. And we are in the top 16, your first feature match of the day, is pitting the Pendulum mechanic against the consistency or inconsistency, as it were, with Carlos Mendrano's Monarch deck. So we see a quick Synchron hit the board, and we see a Magical Abductor counter.
What's really interesting about Carlos's deck is that he's playing the Zolkin variant.
Right.
It's a little inconsistent at times, but when it goes off, it's just so powerful.
And we talked about, really the key factor for the Zolkin Monarch is not only do you have that access from an extra deck perspective, but you can play cards like Quick Draw Synchron that they get that extra value of not really caring about what's happening with your field, or a card like Red Layer, you really can't use it if you already have monsters on board. And so it really has some versatility in that department. Obviously being able to pitch cards like the Prime Monarch, Pantheism, Idea, Eidos really comes in handy as well. So we got 2 Aether, a return, and it looks like a whole lot of damage coming Cameron Neal's way. And there is your first attack of the day. It is successful. And Jeff, as we kind of look at the deck lists here, anything else striking?
Actually, yeah, it's Cameron's deck. I see that he's actually running some traps. It's interesting that he has a warning and 3 Solemn Strike in his main. It looks like he bricked a little bit by not opening enough of his Pendulum monsters. So.
Again, we're bringing you live coverage. This is the top 16, Sweet 16. Carlos Mendrano versus Cameron
Neal.
And this is TPO Pro, Tyler Poe alongside Jeffrey Michael Percher, as the top 16 is underway here at ARG Live, and there's a reveal for Pantheism. He's going to grab a Tenacity, shuffle a deck, at which point he will reveal a Monarch and search his deck once more.
Oh, I'm sorry, buddy.
And again, welcome all watchers, viewers tuning into Twitch, ARG Live. This is Tipo Pro alongside Jeffrey Michael Percher, and we've got an Idea play coming up here. And Carlos just shuffling the hand, thinking about his line of play.
I really feel like Carlos is just looking at Neal's board and is like, I'm safe underneath my Return of the Monarchs. I can't get striked. I think I'm just going to go in and finish this as quickly as possible.
Talk to Rob, yeah. Oh, you talked to Rob? Yeah. Oh.
And now we're going to see Cameron thinking,
Oh, cool.
and he does proceed to his standby phase.
Yeah.
Looks like, I can't get a read on exactly what's in his hand. Possibly another Abductor and a Lecter Pendulum.
Okay, so it looks like Cameron just removed from Abductor so he could search out a Pendulum.
Now in our other match, we do have a very interesting deck that has made its way into the top 16, which we're going to talk more about should they continue throughout this tournament. But that is Infernoid Burning Abyss, rearing its ugly head here in the Sweet 16. Obviously, when you think about a deck like Burning Abyss, the consistency there, cards like Dante, Free Milling, it seems to fit well in with that Infernoid theme. Obviously, the advantage of Infernoids is you have really these kind of DD Crow effects that you can activate on either player's turn, and really just providing a lot of disruption for cards like Seer and Graph and Pantheism and Prime, all of which are, of course, in the top 16. And this is interesting. We'll see what's... And there's the Stormforth. So,
Oh, the name's on the wrong side, I think. Yeah, they are. No, they're not. Are they? No? Right?
both players continue to fill each other out here. If you're just joining us, ARG Live, St. Louis, Tipo Pro alongside Jeffrey Michael Percher. This is round 1 of the Sweet 16. So this is your top 16 match, feature match. Cameron Neal, Carlos Mendrano. Carlos, of course, playing Monarch. It's a very similar play style to a deck that he's had some success with in the past. That deck being, of course, Prophecy.
Alright, so I think what Cameron Neal is trying to do here is counter the Ether in hand while being able to send back that big 2-8 guy.
Yep.
I think that Odd Eyes has one negation on under its belt.
Yep. And that is Jeffrey Michael, the Shadal Master, or Dougie Master, if you're familiar with the dueling network scene. And there comes a Skull Crobat Joker, hits the field. And that's going to, again, continue to mount some advantage for Cameron as he tries to kind of figure out how to approach this Monarch variant matchup. Obviously, Cameron Neal well prepared for Zolkin Monarchs, and as evidenced by his main deck triple effect failure, which of course Carlos had to smile before the match. We started looking at the deck list and said, really, there's only 3 cards that stuck out to me that I need to be mindful of in this matchup, and that's the triple effect failure.
Alright, Cameron going in here with the big
really
push.
Going in. He's got Skull Crobat, Abductor, Ariadne, Pendulum Sorcerer, and of course that big Odd Eyes fusion. And there's a strike on the Aether, and so this, wow, Cameron Neal really showcasing that Pendulum's not going anywhere, and possibly heading into the top 8 if things should continue in this fashion. But we're still a long way from that, folks, and really interested to see how the other players are doing throughout the competition today. To give you guys just a highlight of what decks are represented, I do want to just break that down for you. So in case you hadn't had a chance to look at the deck list, easy to remember, just remember 3, 4, 4, 5. And in order, we had 3 Pendulum variants, we had 4 Burning Abyss decks, one of which is our Infernoid Burning Abyss deck, 4 Cosmos, the majority of those the Demise variant, and last but not least we had 5 Monarchs, those Monarch decks really varying in play styles and also in card choices. So Jeff, as we see Cameron continuing to look through his deck, weigh his options, do you think that what's got to be going through Carlos's mind right now? I mean, he's played about as well as his hand could be, but it just seems like Cameron's had the better options in game one.
I don't actually think. I mean, there's no way that a single bow is going to do anything.
Well, in game one, I feel like Cameron just wants to end this as quickly as possible. He was able to get rid of that Ether. I can't imagine that Carlos has another one in hand. Otherwise, he would have put it on board.
Right.
So I think he's really just trying to,
Let me see a guitar
get the draws.
and a lizard draw.
I think he's going to go for a Castell to bounce back that trap card, put it back in the deck.
Hey, what's up, David?
Again, if you're just joining us, we are live here in Collinsville, Illinois, your site of ARG St. Louis. Top 16 action underway. Cameron Neal's Pendulum deck against Carlos Mendrano's Monarchs. And they are Tolkien Monarchs. And there's the Guitardo. Counter Inductor. And there, of course, is the Lizard Draw. So things kind of spiraling out of control here for Carlos. If you're curious where to find the deck list, encourage you to check out ARG Circuit Series, as well as ARG on Facebook, where the deck lists have been posted.
Yeah, and likewise, we would really like to hear from you guys in the chat what you think of these decks.
Yeah, and so we had some great discussions yesterday where just people calling out the proper lines of play and figuring out what they would do in that situation. Always love that level of engagement here in the stream and on the chat. This is round Sweet 16. First round of the day for Top Cut. So again, if you missed the action due to the player size, we started with this match. This is the first match of the day of Sweet 16. Then we'll then move to the top 8, the Final 4, and of course, our favorite match, which is the finals. So this is the first match of the day. Cameron Neal, Carlos Mendrano, both players have had a chance due to the way that we do things here in ARG, able to look at each other's deck list and kind of understand what each deck is bringing to the table. Cameron with the advantage in this matchup, just main decking triple effect failure, which is it's going to get a lot of value.
For some players, just as a reminder, it is the Alice Cluster format today. For some players, we are putting the new Alice Cluster format.
And again, it looks like Cameron's considering Castell to go ahead and send back the Prime, which is again an extremely strong play right now because Mr. Mendrano does not have another Prime in his graveyard. So this is, again, really smart play from Cameron, recognizing that may not be able to game him, so it's better to...
He dropped another bow, which is good.
Steven Boatwright just blessing again. He has mana open for steal.
There we go. And Abductor just continuing to gain some counters.
I think the Christian
Cameron just so in control, so calm. That's really been the takeaway in this game number one is sometimes you head into the day, the first round, maybe some jitters. Cameron just well within his comfort zone right now.
It's looking pretty spooky right now.
I think somebody touched on it earlier. Cameron's a keyboard warrior. That guy's DN rating is huge.
Wow, so that's interesting. So I'd be curious to ask Cameron kind of his thoughts on dueling network and how that applies to real competition, because there's so many things that you can't pick up on in an online setting, such as reading a player. It's very similar in a lot of ways to playing online poker, where you see people come over from that space and have a lot of success in a real event. And it's interesting the parallels between those two sports and figuring out what are they taking away from that and what are they managing. And Dweller is going to hit the board as well, so this just seems like a scoop phase for Carlos Mendrano, but we'll see. He does draw a Solar Windjammer. He is, of course, playing 3 Solar Windjammer, which is a little different than we've seen so far. So again, really trying to maximize those rank 5 plays.
It looks like he drew another blessing also.
And someone in the chat did have a good question. What is Cameron Neal's dueling network name, for those that would like to follow him?
I believe it's Cameron the Man Neal.
Cam the Man Neal.
Searches for long, and then the next turn he flips back down, falls for stone, or you can stay flip, fall for
Last I checked, I think he was like 13th on DN.
we're going to go get an update on the life points. And again, we're going to take at least 15 off for Solemn Strike.
Yeah, so that actually is what caused me to lose game 1 against
And again, thank you all for joining us. ARG Live, Sweet 16, Cameron Neal versus Carlos Mendrano. Just kind of waiting for our scoreboard assistant to load here. So again, appreciate your feedback as well. We're just having a few technical difficulties as far as being able to update the score, but for those of you at home, Carlos is at 4,600 by my calculation, and yes, it looks like, thank you, Crimson as well. And then that is the game. So, irrelevant, really, at this point. So again, we have really a matchup of two men, and Cam the Man Neal and Carlos the Man Mendrano. And so we're getting set for game number 2. Let's look at the side deck where both players bring a variety of cards that can have some impact here. Obviously, Magic Spectre Unicorn Kieran is in Cam Neal's deck, as well as one Secret Village of the Spellcasters, which is obviously coming in against this matchup. Probably see triple Magic Deflector and Mystical Space Typhoon would be interesting as well. I'm going to say that he's going to side a maximum of about 4 cards. So I'm thinking 3 Magic Deflector and 1 Secret Village. For Carlos, I would expect him to bring in 2 Twin Twister, possibly 2 Space Typhoon, and he does side 2 Strike and 1 Warning, as well as 2 Drowning Mirror Force. So he can go either direction here if he wants more of the Spell Trap removal for the Mask of Restrict, or but now, of course, if he's paid attention to the deck list, knows he doesn't have to worry about Mask of Restrict, so he may opt for a different card, such as Royal Decree, which could have value against Deflector, or just playing Drowning Mirror Force and hoping to assert some control in that way.
I mean, honestly, I really feel like Carlos might bring in some Solemn Strike.
But he only paid 3 mana, so it has to be
He's probably going to want to counter that Secret Village, though. I guess he could get it off of Karas, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of different different choices that they have to make now that they know each other's deck list.
So if you're just joining us, Can the Man Neal sealing game number 1 and hoping to take game 2 as well and move into the top 8 bracket here in the final stages of ARG St. Louis. If you're just joining us, T-Po Pro alongside Jeffrey Michael Percher, aka the Dougie Master. And it looks like, again, we are just updating the score for you, updating those lists as well. And we're just shuffling up here. Game 2. Who can get into the top 8? We will find out here in just a few minutes. Again, appreciate the subscriptions. For those of you that are subscribers, always appreciate you following us live on ARG Live from Twitch. Also appreciate anyone who checks out our YouTube as well as Facebook. Go ahead and like, comment, rate, subscribe. In the meantime, bringing you live action here from St. Louis. And it looks like, again, if you're just joining us, top 16, 3 Pendulum variants. We have 5 Monarchs. We have 4 Cosmo. We have 4 Burning Abyss, with that 4th one being a spectacular blend of Infernoid Burning Abyss. So really some diversity and some parity as well, this format that's really kind of summed up the way that the format's progressed, as we saw Pendulums being overwhelmingly dominant, being hit on the list, and from there the adjustments have been made. So it looks like I see a Veiler, a Strike, and an Upstart from Mr. Neal. And it looks like this is really boding well for Cam the Man Neal, as he has opened really 2 cards that you really want to see in that Effect Veiler. And so it looks like Cam is, oh wow, and Carlos is just going to set 2 and pass, so may have bricked as well. This is heating up, folks. Game 2. Upstart Goblin is activated. That's going to give Carlos 9,000 to play with, but we'll see if it matters. And there's 2 set. We know 3 set now. Obviously, one is Solemn Strike, and Carlos continues to dig. And again, this is TPO Pro, Tyler Poe, alongside Jeffrey Michael Percher. And again, if you're joining us, this is the top 16. Cam the Man Neal versus Carlos the Man Mendrano. And we've updated their names to reflect as such. So this is two individuals. Don't know if they know each other, but they're certainly getting well acquainted here in game number 2. And
it looks like
they've sided into chain burn, but I don't think that's happening here. I think they're both just kind of feeling each other out. And so, Jeff, as we look at and kind of step back from this match and look at the players still in this thing, we have a lot of star power. Not only do we have these two players that have had a lot of success throughout the years, we also have the reigning champion in Jacob Finney. We also have really the best player of the last decade in Patrick Hoban. And we have a Leverett here or there. Zach Leverett has made his way with Cosmo, the Demise variant. And so that presents an interesting opportunity as well.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I think my most interesting observation is how Jake Finney switched from playing Cosmo.
Yeah, you know, that's something we talked about on the stream yesterday, if you missed this. It's very rare to see a player win an ARG event, come back to the next one with a completely different deck, but that's what Jacob Finney has done in this. He again talked to him a little bit yesterday, and he shared with us that he just realized something about Cosmo. He wasn't able to really share what that was, but I'm interested to hear from him later this afternoon about what was that flaw that he just kept hitting that wall that ultimately led him to changing his deck list, as we see a Solar Windjammer come down. So again, this is day 2, your Sweet 16 matchup, Cam Neal against Carlos Mendrano. Talking briefly about Jacob Finney, the ARG champion of Charlotte, who's still in this match, in this top Sweet 16. And he's playing Burning Abyss, and he's playing a very interesting variant, as we see a Gem Knight Garnet come out. And this is just old school beatdown at this point. So we're going to take direct connections from Solar Windjammer and Gem Knight Garnet. Garnet has 1900 attack.
The power of Solar Windjammer. I believe Solar Windjammer is 700 attack, and then Garnet 19, so that's going to be a 26.
So 54 is the life points. As we update that here. And we see 2 Pantheism already being used, or being chosen. Of course, giving him the Stormforth, so kind of telegraphed there from Carlos. And again, we are live. Top Sweet 16, and the players continue to battle here. Looking across the room, we have Jacob Finney locked in. We have Blair Hunter with the card guys still making his way. One of the very few, and in fact the lone, Fire King Cosmo player still left in this thing. Saw him on the stream yesterday.
So right now,
Blair just knows Cosmo. He knows the ins and outs. He has a great YouTube video on his channel.
He does.
About all the combos that Cosmo make. And I really think that deck is just something that he really loves and he really likes playing.
Well, and to share some insight from our stream yesterday is, you know, we interviewed Patrick Hoban and asked him, if there's any deck that you're afraid of, what is it? And he very bluntly said, it's Fire King Cosmo. And he said that, you know, the reason he didn't play it is he felt it was kind of a glass cannon, but felt that it's really one of the deck that has a really powerful auto-win feature from going first, and wholeheartedly agree. And that was on evidence yesterday as Blair was able to overcome a 1-0 deficit to come back and steal and draw in that particular stream. And wow, Cam may have oversighted. He has 5 cards in his back row. Who knows how many magic deflectors? Obviously a Solemn Strike and a face down card, and he's just protecting his life points at this point.
You know, what's crazy is that I think all those back rows are real.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his list, they can't not be, right?
I
they
mean,
have to be warning strikes, you know, possibly the deflectors. So there's no other spell card in his deck that he would actually set. Obviously, you're not going to set maybe an Odd Eyes Fusion, I suppose. But
if he had set an Odd Eyes Fusion, I think he would have played that. That would have been pretty powerful right now.
Yeah, right. So obviously can't be that either. So it really just has to be the deflectors, and Carlos is okay with that because he's saying, you know what, I'm just going to continue to attack. But there's a second donkey, And for those of you just joining us, that is Performa Pal's second donkey. We're in Suite 16, Can the Man Neal versus Carlos the Man Mendrano.
Yeah. Carlos
And,
just took 100 for that.
Carlos did just take 100.
That donkey.
That's going to bring him down to 8,900 life points in this one.
Oh, wait. All right, here we go.
And there is the Master Pendulum hitting the board. And things are about to get out of hand.
I think it's about to get spicy, guys.
And speaking of spice, we've seen really a lot of variety in these deck lists. And Jake Finney, we mentioned him earlier, playing the Red Lotus card. Banish 2,000 life points, pay 2,000 life points to reveal your hand, to then look at your opponent's hand and banish one card. Obviously, I agree with the chat here where you got to think that the dark horse in all of this is the Burning Abyss Infernoid match, where that deck is just so interesting to me. I was curious when I first heard that Infernoid had made the top cut. I was really hoping that it would have been that level 1, the Goyo Defender variant, where if you haven't seen LA Regional recently, there was a top deck list with 3 Goyo Defender using a powerful combo with Infernoid, Decatron, and Thousand Eyes Restrict to create a field of Leviair and potentially 2 Omega, depending on your
Where
hand
art
size.
thou?
Would you look at this? This is absolutely incredible.
Okay, yeah, one water still. Okay.
And we're live again, TPO Pro alongside Jeffrey Michael Percher. This is your Sweet 16 match, game number 2 between Carlos and Cam. Cam with the 1-0 advantage thus far, and he also has the advantage of having a monster that has just enough defense to be dangerous here.
Oh, wow. He tribute summoned for the Solar Windjammer under the return. So he's going to get that search.
So he's going to get a search actually from this. Wow. So what did he grab here? Just the Aether?
I mean, whatever's going to give you that advantage.
Yeah, so he does grab the Aether as predicted. And curious to see what happens next.
So Cameron's going to need, well, if he has a strike, he can stop that Aether.
And so someone in the chat had asked about that Goyo Defender combo video. It's going to be a Los Angeles regional. You can search Yu-Gi-Oh for, I would search Yu-Gi-Oh deck list or Los Angeles Infernoid on YouTube. It was only less than a month ago, so I would set your search filter as such and continue to watch. That's also available on other sites as well, where you can go ahead and look up those advanced format deck lists. So it's definitely out there, and it's interested to see at the middle of that video, there's a pretty neat combo with Goyo Defender that essentially lets you use Infernoid Decatron twice in one turn, which of course fuels your graveyard even further with Infernoid monsters. So interesting to see how that deck has adapted with obviously the limit to reasoning. And still, a card that we haven't talked about as we're kind of waiting for these two players someone to control this game, is a card that really shocked me in its inability to be played competitively. Is left arm offering.
There is a way to update that, and I don't want to touch it because I'll break it, and then there will be no stream.
I'm telling you, just hit Alt-Tab.
No, we're not hitting Alt-Tab.
What is this, a Mac? No, it's a regular, no, it's a PC.
And
Yeah, Alt-Tab.
left arm offering, if you're unfamiliar with it, as long as you have 2 or more cards in your hand, you do banish your entire hand to add whatever spell card you want from your deck to your hand. So obviously, any sort of 2-card combo is going to be the most effective. That way, you can make up for that cost. And so obviously, a deck like Soul Charge.deck, where you have maybe Lone Fire Blossom and the ability and interactions with Lone Fire, different dimension, return, as well as Gigavise. It'd be interesting to see why that deck hasn't really made an impact. Thought that would be something that would really be interesting. Very powerful combo. So anytime you open Lone Fire, Soul Charge, or Left Arm Offering, as well as if you open Lone Fire Supervise, you could combo off, as well as Super Solar Nutrient. And this is such a strange game. Getting back to the action, we're in the Sweet 16. This is your first feature match of the day. TPO Pro alongside Jeffrey Michael Percher. And Carlos Mendrano and Cam Neal are gridlocked here in game number 2. Cam with the early victory in game number 1. And now we're just seeing double donkey against a sort of beatdown variant from Carlos. And this is really a match and a game that
Yeah, but then they get
It's really interesting from a player perspective because you do so much deck building, all these different interactions. Sometimes it just doesn't fall the way that you think it will, and you just have to play the cards you're dealt, right? And this is a matchup where these two players did not draw and open very well, but they're just playing out these hands, and we know that they're going to get fixed eventually, and it's really just kind of neat to see what's happening.
So it looks like Cam has the donkey, and so he's going to use that effect to add. And it looks like.
What would you add here?
I'm not 100% sure. I can't quite see everything Cameron has, but I do know he has to out that ether.
And someone did raise a good point that I believe that the Solar Windjammer that was tribute summoned did attack over that Master Pendulum, potentially. Because Master Pendulum has 1950 attack, and the Solar Windjammer properly summoned still has.
Okay, it looks like he saw him striked.
So I don't know what happened with that Master
He
Pendulum.
still got the
But
second stone hand, so he filtered into a second one.
I mean, it would make sense to keep some of the beasts just because, like, you want to be able to ping off your guys.
The water turtle is especially useful in this matchup.
either way, Cam still has the Veiler in his hand. You just think that that's really going to come up clutch whenever these players do attempt to get going.
It looks like
Meanwhile,
he's getting the
looking
sorcerer.
out, Patrick Hoban's match is finished. Jake Finney's match is finished as well. Curious to see who prevailed. And we may see if we can grab Mr. Finney.
Well, Steve Boatwright does not have 10 games.
Or if you could grab
Yeah, what am I? 52 to my 42. Here you go. How much damage is it? It's 200. Okay.
All right, and again, if you're just joining us, ARG Live here in St. Louis. This is your Sweet 16 matchup. Can the man Neal versus Carlos the man Mendrano. We are gridlocked here in kind of an old school looking duel with a lot of cards in each other's back rows, a lot of monsters on the board, and really no sort of advantage either way.
Players, just as a reminder, we are taking registration at the main stage.
It looks like we are wrapping up this Sweet 16 round as players are making their way throughout the tournament. Looking at the deck list, it's really hard to pick a clear favorite. Obviously, a player like Patrick Hoban is always going to get that attention, and rightfully so, as far as someone that could make through. And we're going to hold off on the interviews here. But it looks like everything's going well. And wow, this is such an interesting match just from the standpoint of these two players just we're going to go ahead and again get a life point check as well, just to keep you guys going. We believe that we missed a solemn strike here a few moments ago, so we'll continue to update that as well. The effect of the Prime Monarch is activated as well. Just going to shuffle 2 cards back and draw a card. And again, if you're just joining us, Sweet 16, game number 2, life point check for you. We've got Carlos Mendrano at 4,200 life points to Cam Neal's 5,200 life points. But then, as soon as I speak, Solemn Warning is activated. And Solemn Warning is going to go ahead and cost another 2,000. So we've got 3,200 life points. And then we also have the attack over Second Donkey. Second Donkey's attack is... What is the attack of Second Donkey? I believe it's just 800, but... and they're going to pick it up. So thank you again for your insights into the live point tracker. As always, appreciate that, as it's a little difficult here on the stream, but looks like that duel is over anyway. So we see the Secret Village did not come in from Mr. Neal. And wow, it looks like now we have ourselves exactly what we wanted.
Honestly, I think it's really interesting how the Monarch deck decided in all those traps.
I don't know if I agree with it. I really don't.
It's already hard whenever Monarchs brick, but if you can stop Form of Pal from, building up their extra deck, I think it could be really powerful. And as we saw here, it did come in.
So my feedback on that would be, and I think Patrick voiced a similar concern yesterday, in the sense that anytime you side in the Monarch deck, you have to just draw those side cards, of course, like anyone else. And so if your side cards are searchable in any way through your engine, it's going to be a lot better in most situations than just drawing the trap, even if that trap is more powerful in a vacuum than the other. So, as an example, had Carlos chosen to main Mega Zaborg or side Mega Zaborg, he could then call upon that Zaborg with return and take out Mr. Neal's extra deck, which would, of course, be a huge blow to Mr. Neal in this one, taking out key cards like Ignister and Dynastor that really help that deck to assimilate advantage. And so that's something that will be interesting to see how that plays out with Carlos's decision just to play trap cards. And again, top 16 action, TPO Pro alongside Jeffrey Michael Percher. And Jeff, as we look kind of around the room, it's a great crowd here gathered in Collinsville, Illinois. Everyone anticipating the move on to the top 8 and figuring out who is going to win this one. Looks like we've got still a couple of matches continuing here.
What I think is really interesting is that all these duelists are taking as much time as they can to make that optimal play. You see all this concentration around all the faces. It's a really great environment here at ARG. The next time you have one nearby, you guys should definitely go. Alright, nice handshake.
It's 1-1 right now.
A nice handshake going on between the two players before the game 3.
Yep, game 3. We are locked and loaded here. Game 3.
Alright. It looks like Cameron Neal is electing to go first.
He opened the Valor again, so he's opened Valor every single game this far, and that's really hurt Carlos, and I think he expected that when they first looked at each other's deck lists. So fortunate, of course, for Mr. Neal. Unfortunate for Mr. Mendrano. We'll see if he can play around it. And I think he has Secret Village access as well, so this may be over very quickly, folks. Wow, that's just fantastic from Mr. Neal. But then he wouldn't be able to activate any spells without a spellcaster of his own, so interesting to see if he goes for an Iris here, or if he instead chooses to grab that village.
Pull the judge's hide or something.
I think he has the village in hand.
Again, if you're just joining us, this is game 3. Can't get any sweeter than this in the Sweet 16. And we have two players, Mr. Mendrano and Mr. Neal, going at it. And of course, looking at the side deck, we see 3 Magic Deflector in the main, as well as potentially Secret Village. He does elect for the Odd Eyes to fix his hand as well. Mr. Mendrano, of course, playing Monarchs, but also siding some interesting trap cards like Solemn Strike and Solemn Warning. So we'll have to pay close attention to the life points here.
I think what Cameron's debating on is summoning the Effect Veiler and activating the Secret Village.
As a spellcaster. Yep, and that's what we see, so right on cue.
Yeah.
And Dougie Master, Jeffrey Michael Percher, providing you that insight just before it happened.
Yeah, it's a very precarious position because, of course, Effect Veiler has 0 attack and defense.
And, of course, if he draws a Garnet, which we assume that he did, all of a sudden that play is just really questionable. Really questionable.
The one time that you really want to draw
Garnet, right? or Solar Windjammer. So that's another thing that I don't agree with this play from the standpoint of he knows Carlos's list and knows that he has actually several monsters he can just summon and attack over it without using a spell.
Yeah.
Cards like Quick Draw Synchron, cards like Gemini Garnet, and
speaking of
Solar Windjammer. So right on cue again, we see that maybe Cameron forgetting what's in his list, or maybe just not anticipating that he'd have one of those early on. But so he's going to resolve Pantheism, which, again, he's not bothered by him losing the Tenacity, because he can just grab 2 Tenacity and then whatever card he's going to add here as well. And so he doesn't lose really any kind of choice as far as what card he's going to add. What would you add here?
Well, first we need to take that 700 off.
Yep, we'll take 700 off.
But I think he wants to add just more draw. I think he wants to get in his engine. I don't think he cares.
And so anyone wondering about, whether or not to play Quick Draw, there you go. You can out Secret Village with Effect Veiler on the field. And this, we may see a Zolkin come out by the end of this turn. What do you think? Crystal Wing Synchro could be pretty powerful, as well as Michael to go ahead and banish that Secret Village and get that out of the game completely. I think that's a good play. I think start a Spark Dragon if he happened to draw anything worthwhile to protect. But he's also looking at the damage aspect. Well, let's see. He's kind of thinking about the Zolkin here.
You need some way to get that trap in the grave, though.
And again, we are here live, Sweet 16, round 1 here on day 2. This is the Sweet 16 matchup between Cam Neal and Carlos Mendrano. This is game 3, and they are gridlocked at 1 game apiece. Really wondering what's going on as far as this standpoint, and really curious. Jeff, what do you think is going to happen the rest of this game?
I mean, Cam's deck is really a testament to his ability to play out of certain situations. He hasn't opened up amazing throughout this match, but he's just played good cards. He's gotten there.
And the only thing I got to question is that Veiler play, and I don't know if it's because he does make a living, playing on Dueling Network Online, where you don't, get the opportunity to read these deck lists like you do at an ARG. And I'm curious if he just did the optimal play blind, when in reality he could have realized what was at stake and what else was in the wheelhouse for Mendrano, obviously having all those monsters that can run it over, even a card like Max C.
Yeah, well, it's hard when you draw Secret Village and Terraforming, and just not enough Pendulum monsters.
And we do see Zolkin hit the board, as well as Clearwing Synchro Dragon.
So it looks like Cam drew the Skull Knight Joker.
And true, so there's going to be a lot of heat, maybe directed towards Cam for that play. But honestly, if you look at his hand, there's really not a whole lot much he could have done. I think he was kind of hoping to use those 2 cards, commit those 2 cards to the field, just to buy him some time. And we'll see if it's anything he can do. Again, this is top 16, TPO Pro, alongside none other than Jeffrey Michael Percher, a.k.a. the Dougie Master. And looks like Zach Leverett is finishing up his match as well. Not sure who was victorious in that. And Blair Hunter still battling here in Sweet 16 as well. So we're underway, and Michael Steinman as well, still in the top 16, battling one of the local favorites here. And so really a lot of action still to be had here in our top cut, as we are bringing you live coverage from ARG St. Louis, Sweet 16. And speaking of Sweet, we have a Ultimaya Tolkien on the field, and Carlos, who, and another thing too, let's not forget that had he not done that, what does Carlos do? Because if Carlos had that Quick Draw Synchron, which you know what he did, do you think he would have made a rank 5 play and pushed for the damage? You think he would have been tempted to make the Ultimaya and then getting it Veilered? Would that have turned things around? Or do you think he's smart enough to not go for... I mean, anytime you see Ultimaya and you see that deck list and it's new, there's always that kind of compulsion to just make it whenever you can. So take me back a couple turns. Walk me through, if Cam doesn't play the Veiler in the Secret Village and he passes, do you think he ends up getting the chance to Veiler the Ultimaya, or do you think he doesn't even go that direction? Your thoughts, Jeff?
Well, I really think that Cam was just banking on this hope that if Carlos had all these draw cards, he wouldn't be able to do anything. And he would have to pass right back. Cam would be able to draw a good card and try to get back in this game.
And poor Cam is just beside himself.
That Ultimaya, it's just so strong. And I believe Carlos has the trap in hand, so next turn he can just set that and
then just continue to roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, this thing is kind of nearing its conclusion here, and it looked like Cam had every card that he needed from a side deck perspective, but it just raises a good point that you really can't overside. You really can't afford to side too much, and with taking away the consistency, especially a deck like Performa Pals that has been hit several times, and it's difficult to get them going. Maybe even more so than Monarch in some ways.
I think the main advantage of Draco Pals is the fact
and
that...
there's Stardust, Spark Dragon, and the Clear Wing attacking. So we will take that off as well. So we're going to take that off as well. 5,500 there. Cam is going to make a play here, still taking the damage for the Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. And he has 3,000 attack points, so he's at 25. And the Skull Crobat Joker comes down, trying to make a last-ditch effort here. And I'm not sure why he allowed that to go through. I think it's a good point. I think it's a good point from our chat. You know, why did he let that go through when he had the negation? So really kind of interesting from Carlos here. He does MST the Luster. I guess he's just saving it for the comeback. I don't know, but Cameron's going to think this out, and he may go ahead and scoop it up. But he does have a second donkey in his hand. In that position, I do question him allowing that to go through, but we do have the handshake, and we are done. So your Sweet 16 round is over. Carlos, the man Mendrano, taking down Cam, the man Neal. Both players really showcasing their decks well, showing their side deck choices coming up big. Also showing how to grind it out when your hand doesn't give you what you thought it would. And so that's been really interesting to see. And again, Carlos will be moving on with his Monarch deck. And so if you're joining us from home, we are ARG Live, Tipo Pro, alongside Jeffrey Michael Percher, a.k.a. the Dougie Master. Appreciate all of you viewing today. Encourage you to also comment, like, rate, subscribe. Post questions in the chat. We'll be live most of the day, taking your questions and going over different theories and discussions. Again, just appreciate everyone in the chat. Appreciate their contributions to the life point totals as well as some rulings and catching things on the stream. Always appreciate that feedback. Again, we are heading into the top 8 after this, as we still have 2 players finishing up their round. Stay tuned. We are here, and appreciate you guys sticking it out with us today. Going to bring you a whole host of coverage, as well as some interesting segments that we've put together for your viewing pleasure. And we're going to go over one of those segments now. And so this is a segment that is near and dear to my heart, and we call it What Needs a Reprint? And so asking people in the chat, as well as Jeff as well, there's been a lot of reprints lately. We talk about the Premium Gold series, reprinting some of the best cards to ever be created, but there are still those cards that have seemingly slipped through the cracks.
Yeah.
And just want to get some info about all of you about what card do you think needs a reprint and why? Be curious to see what your thoughts are on that. And again, we'll be back with more coverage on the top 8 in a matter of minutes here. So in the meantime, reprints. Omega, a great one. I think that Vadriana or Gay Durg is probably going to get mentioned, and yes, Gay Durg mentioned. Fantastic. So those are probably two of the biggest. We have Secret Village. It's great. Maybe a shout out to the Noble Knights from Ignoble himself. You know, I've got one that I'll share with you, Jeff. And this is a card that I absolutely love. I think it would look amazing as an Ultimate Rare.
Oh my.
Or a Secret Rare.
Or a secret.
That is
Or I think
Swap Frog.
Oh, I think that would
It's
look
done
good as a
so
super.
much, and it just doesn't get any respect. There's no reprint. Can I get a hashtag Swap Frog from anyone? It's just so calming.
Is there an ultimate rare Dark Magician?
That's a good one as well. We got Mass Chopper, an old crowd favorite, making its
Oh.
way